In the previous lesson, we have defined one-to-many relationship to connect courses with lessons, and in this lesson, we're going to define inverse relationship called belongs to, so that we will be able to retrieve a particular course by using lesson models. But we'll start with improving logic to seed random data within lessons tables. So let's modify lesson seeder. In here, I'm going to call method each on the course model and pass the callback. And this callback is going to be executed for every record from the courses table. At each iteration, we're going to receive a particular course model as a parameter into this callback. And right here, I'm going to create the collection with random numbers. We're going to generate those numbers by using method range starting from 1 up to the random number within a range from 5 to 20. So for each course, inside this callback, we're going to be generating collections with random numbers of different lengths. And I'm doing it to be able to call method each on this collection and execute another callback as many times as many items will be generated in this collection with random numbers. And we're going to generate lessons for each course by using the lesson factory, like so. And if you want to check some expression, do not forget that you also have an option to run this expression within the Tinker. I'm gonna do it right now. So let's open up Tinker by running PHP artisan Tinker. And right here, let's see what kind of collection will be generated by using the following expression. As you can see, we got the collection with random numbers starting from 1. And each time we're going to execute this expression, we're going to get the collection of different lengths, but all the numbers in the collection will always be starting from 1. So we're going to get each number from the collection in the first parameter number of this callback, and then I'm going to use this number to assign it to the number column of the lessons table, like this. But the main idea here is that we have to connect each newly generated lesson to a particular course that is contained within this course variable of disclosure. And to do so, we'll have to define inverse relationship on the lesson table to bind it to a particular course. So let's open up lesson model, and right here I'm going to declare new relationship method with a name course. And to define inverse relationship, we're going to use belongs to method call and pass the name of the related model. In this case, the model will be course because we want to bind lesson to the course. If in the previous lesson we were defining lessons relationship on the course model to be able to retrieve all the lessons that belong to a particular course, in this lesson we're defining course relationship on the lesson model to be able to retrieve particular course by using lesson model. And also, when we are following standard naming conventions, we do not have to specify column names that are used in this relationship because Laravel is going to take the name of this relationship, append underscore ID to this name, and this way it is going to get the column name that contains an identifier of the related course. But if you are not following the naming conventions, you always have an option to pass the name of the column as a second argument inside this belongs to method. Alright, time to test this relationship. Let's open up terminal and run Tinker. So first of all, I'm going to run the query to get the first record from the courses table. And then let's see how many lessons are related to this course. We're getting the collection of related lessons. There is also a method called first on the collection object that is going to return the first item from this collection, and then by having the first lesson of the course, we can reference our newly defined relationship called course to be able to retrieve the related course. And just like with any other relationship that we can define in Laravel, we can reference this relationship by using property. This way, the SQL query to fetch related items will be executed. And if we are using this relationship as a method, we're going to get special relationship object that can be used further to customize SQL query. But we don't have to do it right now, because our goal is to actually bind each lesson that was going to be generated in our seeder to a particular course. And to do so, I'm going to call method for and pass the course that I'd like to bind to this particular lesson. And just because we are within this callback, we don't have access to the outer scope, meaning that we have to explicitly specify use to tell which variables will be defined within this callback, or we can simply use arrow function instead. So let's just reformat this code a little bit to make it easier to read. And open up terminal and execute migrations along with seeders by specifying seed flag. And by the way, since we haven't modified any of our migrations, there is no need to execute them, so we can simply execute only seeders by running db seed. As you can see, there are no errors. Let's check it out in the browser and make sure that each course now has related lessons. And we're still seeing that the list of lessons is shown on the particular course page. We can also use arrow function for the following callback, up to you, however it is easier for you to read. As you may have also noticed, each course block contains amount of lessons that belong to a particular course, but for now this amount is not correct, because currently we are fetching it from the separate column on the courses table called lessons count. And since now we have the relationships defined that attaches lessons to course, we can basically reference this relationship and then get the amount of related records by calling count method like this. So what this will do is it will run a SQL query to get the count of related lesson records. And before checking it out in the browser, I prefer to open up Tinker and check this expression within the Tinker. So let's use that same expression to fetch the amount of lessons that belong to a particular course. And we're getting 7. And to actually see what SQL query will be executed once we're going to reference relationships lesson, we can simply call dd method on this relationship object like this. As you can see, we're using select statement to fetch lessons from the lessons table, and plus we're using where clause to restrict the results to only fetch lessons that belong to a particular course. So now in the browser, that amount of lessons shown inside each course block will be correct. I'm going to eventually remove that lessons count column from the courses table, since we are not using it anymore. First of all, let's remove this attribute lessons count from the course factory. And then open up course seeder. In here we are referencing this lessons count several times within this array with dummy data. So I'm going to go through each element of this array and remove this lessons count attribute from each element. And finally, let's open up our migration, which creates courses table, and remove this column definition from here. And one final time, let's re-execute all migrations along with seeders and finish this lesson. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.